Okay, welcome to video 13.7. Today we're going to talk about writing equations of functions. So when trying to write equations of a function, it's helpful to know specific points on the function so that we can then put the points into L1 and L2 lists and choose the correct regression depending on what we're looking for. A linreg number 4, quadratic regression number 5, or exponential regression 0. So recall from yesterday, when you are not told the function, you need to determine the type of pattern in the function. If it's a common difference, it's a linear function. If it's a common second difference, it's a quadratic function. If it's a common ratio, then it's an exponential function. So sometimes they'll tell you, other times they'll just give you a table, and you have to decide which regression would be the most appropriate. So the number of points needed for regression equations, 2 points are needed to use the linear regression, and 3 points are needed to use any other regression equation for our curves so that we know where it goes to. Let's look at a first example together. The first one says that we need to write an equation of a quadratic function. So they're telling us exactly which one we need to use. And that quadratic function needs to go through the points 0, 4, 1, 9, and -3, 1. So in order to do the quadratic regression here, first I'm going to put my points in a table so it's easier to transfer them into L1 and L2. So putting all my x values on one side, so 0, 1, and -3, and all my y values that are paired with them, so 0 is with 4, 1 is with 9, and -3 is with 1. Now I can put the x values in L1, the y values in L2 by going to Stat, Edit. If there's anything in your list, you need to go up to select the list, clear, and hit down. That'll clear your entire list. And again, if there's something in the second list. Then we enter the x values and the y values, go back to Stat, over to Calc, and since this one said it was a quadratic function, we're going to select quadrag. Once we've done that, we're going to copy everything from the screen, and that's your work. Because you let the calculator do the equation for you, you need to just copy down everything that's on the screen. So from my screen, I see at the top y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, and then a value, b value, and c value. Now remember, you should have your diagnostics on, which will give you an r squared here, or an r value depending on the regression. If we're looking for an equation that definitely goes through all those points, we want to make sure that that r value is either 1 or -1. Remember that means a perfect relationship. If it isn't, we might want to double check to make sure that we didn't put a point in incorrectly. The next step, once you have all of this from your calculator, is to just substitute in each value in place of a, b, or c in the equation. So my final answer here would be y equals, and they didn't tell us to put it in function notation or anything like that, so I don't need to worry about f of x, though I could write it as f of x, equals x squared plus 4x plus 4. Okay, let's look at another example. The next one says that we want to write, again, an equation, so we are looking for an r value of 1, of an exponential function that goes through the points, and they give us 3 points here. -3, 16, -1, 4, and 2.5. So again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put my values in a table so it's easier to enter them into my calculator first. So I just put my x values in this side and my y values in this side, again making sure that we keep points together, L1 and L2 above it. And then since it's at an exponential function, I'm going to go back to Stat. So after we've entered this in, remember that we do that by going to Stat, Edit, clear anything in the list by going up, clear down, enter your x values in L1, y values in L2, then back to Stat, over to Calc, and since it's at exponential function here, we're going to choose 0 for an exponential regression. When we do that, we again just copy everything from the screen. Y equals ab to the x power, a is 2, b is 0.5. We can write down the r value if we want, but remember we're always checking to be sure that it's 1 or -1 to show that it's a perfect relationship, since it's an equation that should go through all 3 points. Then substitute in the a and b values. And we'll get our final answer here, which is y equals 2 times 0.5 to the x power. Okay, I'm going to stop there, so just remember to always be careful to read to see which type of function it is, or if they don't tell you which type, to determine the pattern before doing a regression equation. We'll continue it in class. Have a good night.